State Farm versus Nationwide, the two big competitors against each other, both of them in the top 10 as far as insurance company sizes or who own the market. Which one of these companies is going to be the best one? Which one's going to be the best fit for you? Well, today we're going to go over that. We're going to dive right in and go through all of the details, go over the pricings, go over the discounts, explain some of the features that each of them offer that are better than the other, and we're going to come up with a solution that you can take away to know which one's the best one to look at. I want to start off by thanking our channel sponsor, which is Cover Insurance. I'll link them below where you can shop 30 plus companies. Nationwide, I believe, is one of the companies in that 30 some odd companies. So if you're going to do some shopping, that's the route I would recommend. So State Farm is the largest. They own 16+% of the market. And this is before the announcement that just came out where they're partnering up with Hagerty, which is more of a classic car company. So they're going to start working with more of the State Farm Plus versions and have more of those classic vehicles added into that policy. So that's kind of a cool thing. That's going to just increase their market share, and they're going to grow a little bit more in the following couple years. Now that's not until 2022, so Nationwide is coming back to fight that with the longevity and the experience that they also have in the market. They were built in 1925, so they've been around the block, although they only have about 19,000 only, right? 19,000 independent agents that they work with, versus Nationwide has over 19,000 employees. So there's a big size difference between the two, but that's not going to determine who's the better company. There's a lot of really big companies that just don't do well. So size doesn't only play the factor, at least in the insurance industry. So let's find out what the numbers are specifically. There's three major companies at these articles, this is from Bankrate, that will explain the different pieces of insurance. So you've got the AM Best, which is more so just the stability of a company. Do they have the funds to pay out? So the next one is more of the Bankrate score and the J.D. Power score, which is kind of review based and related to that. Those are more of the actual, if they have the money, are they actually paying the claims? Not just that, but are they actually satisfying the customers? Do they have a good score overall? So let's dive into the Bankrate score, where they both got a 4.4 and a 4.3. The 4.4 was with State Farm, and the 4.3 was with Nationwide. Now, both companies are great there. They overall, I think, in my opinion, are going to fall similar to each other, but you're going to notice some things with the prices here as we go further and we start to dive into what scenarios play a factor, where they start to differentiate each other, and it's going to be kind of neat. Let me know in the comments as you go through this if you guys have questions or if you notice something that you've had experience with either of these companies. The AM Best score, so stability, this is kind of odd. You'll never get this. One of them is an A and one of them is an A+. It's not a trick question. The State Farm is only an A, partially because they're huge and they have a lot of market research, whatever the case is. And the Nationwide is an A+. So as far as stability goes, Nationwide is more likely to have a more consistent rate than State Farm is, according to this article. J.D. Power comes in, and that's more of the consumer report, and I get it, some of you realize, and I know that there are ways to buy into the J.D. Power. It doesn't necessarily affect the rating, but it's hard to say it wouldn't if it, yeah, it's like voting for your favorite guy in the government, and he's got a bigger campaign than the other, right? So it's hard to determine this, but J.D. Power has been a staple as far as like notifying these. J.D. Power gave the State Farm one an 881 and the Nationwide an 876. So far, we're pretty much on a level playing field, although the average cost for insurance is a little bit different. State Farm averages about $539 per policy, where the Nationwide is about $501 per policy. Now keep in mind, that's not talking about claims yet. That's just the size of the company, the average experience, and the overall average price. So where this comes into play is credit score, the insurance score. If you haven't already watched my video on how the insurance score affects you, I will link that here for after this video. But the scores are ranked up into several different categories. There's basically poor, average, good, and excellent. So let's look at the prices that each of these guys have. State Farm is coming in if you have poor credit at $3,309 per year, versus Nationwide, which is drastically lower at $1,924 per year. So if you're the person that doesn't have the amazing credit score or insurance score, you're gonna lean towards the Nationwide. For average credit, State Farm is coming at $1,656 per year versus $1,577 for Nationwide. So pretty comparable when you start to get into that average. Now the average credit score is somewhere around that 5 to 600 range to 650, and then now we move into the good credit score, which is like 650 to about 750, and then the best will go beyond that. But they're essentially the same price. So State Farm is going to come in at about $1,457 versus Nationwide, who is actually a little bit higher this case. It's flipped slightly at $1,485. The excellent credit score, if you have that, and a lot of you out there do, you're looking at State Farm now taking the lead at $1,126 versus Nationwide $1,269 per year. But wait, it even gets better. We don't want to forget that age also plays a factor. So let's look at the age 16 to 40 on up. And I'm going to do this one quickly because this will give you some notes you can rewind if I go too fast. So State Farm, $2,077 if you're a 16-year-old. Typically that means you're not on your own policy, you're under parent. So that's the additional cost. Where Nationwide is $1,241. Big difference. They're way cheaper. Age 18 is where you're off on your own. State Farm is now $4,137 per year versus $4,449. So when you're off on your own, Nationwide is not as competitive in these situations. We'll explain that here in just a moment. Age 25, where you stop becoming or staying in that high risk pool, and now you're 25 and up, you're going to be with State Farm, $1,694 versus Nationwide at $1,668. Pretty close. Age 30, it starts to break up, and they're still following the path very close to each other. We've got State Farm at $1,494, Nationwide at $1,479. Now, when you get to 40 is where we're going to start to see a little bit of breaking away, just slightly. We've got State Farm at 40, they're $1,457 versus Nationwide, which is $1,485. Age 60 and above, $1,327, $1,243. So these guys are very comparable so far. They are just like each other as far as the AM Best, the J.D. Power. The credit score is a little bit different and leans towards Nationwide. And then the actual age doesn't play as much of a difference unless you're 16. I would say 16 to 18, you're going to lean towards Nationwide again. Well, tickets are going to also play a factor. So let's take a look at what kind of a ticket will affect you with these. With State Farm, if you have a clean driving record, that's that $1,457 versus Nationwide, the $1,485. Now you add a speeding ticket in the mix, State Farm is more lenient. So even though Nationwide is leaning towards the better option, if you have anything on your record, State Farm is $1,590, so not a big jump. And then Nationwide comes in at about $1,734. So there's quite a big difference between the two. Now, if you've had a speeding ticket, that's what we're talking about. If you've had an accident, you're $1,657 with State Farm versus $1,745 with Nationwide. Now, in these extreme cases, if you got caught with a DUI, you're looking at $2,201 with State Farm and $2,665 with Nationwide. This is where I'm going to pause for a moment before we dive into the discounts and the comparisons, because now that we've gotten the age and claims and tickets and all that stuff kind of shown, there are a lot better options when you're looking at these two. It might be at that point where if these prices come back higher than what we're explaining, you may not be a fit for either company. In this situation, it's best to shop with multiple companies. That's why I have that channel sponsor, which is Cover. If you're looking at shopping multiple companies, Cover across the board is going to shop several companies. I believe they've got 30 plus companies to work with. If you're looking to talk to a live agent, I will put our link down there below as well. Otherwise, those are going to be your best routes as far as doing that. If you want to do the legwork, that's perfectly fine too. You start Googling it, looking around. I will link a video here that will show you how to shop based on customer reviews to find the local areas and the local agents that are good fits for you if either of those are not the option that you're looking for. Now, here's some things that might tweak which way you're going to go, because State Farm does offer several discounts. They've got their Drive Safe and Save, which is probably the biggest discount they're going to give you beyond having home and auto, because you're going to get that with any company you go. I'm going to link a video here where you can watch the State Farm Drive Safe and Save review that we did on them. They give you a good student or a distant student. That's typically when you have a student 100 miles or more. Although I don't personally think that's much of a discount, because just about every company offers that. They offer their steer clear program, so if you're under 25, you can actually do like a safe driver's course. But as we noticed previously, Nationwide was already cheaper. So even after you do the course and get the discount, I fair to say State Farm is still going to be more expensive than the product that Nationwide offers. And then you've got Nationwide, who does the paperless discount, yada, yada, yada. Everybody does that. You got the low mileage discount, where State Farm has keyed in on that. They're really, really good with low mileage drivers. Shoot, they even have a program that allows you to do a base pay. And then if you drive more miles, so you're actually doing a base developed program, I will link that here that you guys can watch more about that if that's a good fit for you. And just like the telematics system that State Farm does, Nationwide has their Drive Safe and Save, which is also that same link. It's kind of the comparison between the Drive Safe and Save and their low mileage program. It allows you to get 10 to 20+% off of your policy by having them track your driving. Especially if you're in the low mileage category and you do both of them, you can get an additional discount with Nationwide, which gives them a little bit more of that edge over State Farm. So as far as the app technology goes, they did separate a little bit. Nationwide was a little bit better. They were ranked as far as the App Store, which is Apple iOS. You're looking at a 4.8 star versus a 4.4 with Nationwide. Pretty decent. It looks like both of them are good, but State Farm is by far getting better reviews, so probably less glitches, more user-ability, getting your ID cards, things like that are probably easier, where Nationwide is more of the, we have an app, you have access to it, but they're probably leaning you more to actually talk on the phone than the State Farm system. Same thing with the Android store, so you're looking at a 4.8 versus a 4.2, and that's the same scenario. They are very functional with both, but State Farm is doing the best. So there you have it. That's the comparison between the two. In my personal opinion on them, I love Nationwide. The only thing I don't like about them is that they're a little bit picky on inspections. So if you're doing the home and auto and they're inspecting the home and there's a little bit of damage in some spot, their adjusters are a little bit more picky than most companies. Whereas State Farm, I haven't heard any really bad negative reviews about them as far as those inspection goes. But when you own the market and you're that large, I think you're going to have a lot of things fall through the cracks there. So there's kind of the negative that I would see on that end. Let me know which one you guys thought was the better option. Put it in the description below. If you've had experience with either of them, I'd love to hear it, and you can share it with other people on this channel. If you want to watch some more reviews, I will link those here where we compare several different companies and go head to head to see who's going to be the better fits. I hope this was a great video. Thumbs up if you loved it. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.